Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of Boston Borough Council's Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I'm Paul Gleeson, and I'm chair of the committee, and with me tonight is Councillor Neil Drayton, my vice chair. I would like to remind people of some housekeeping details. I remind everybody in attendance this evening that this meeting is being streamed on YouTube. Mobile phones should be turned off or switched to silent mode. Please ensure that you use the microphone system at all times when addressing the meeting to help everyone hear clearly, both in the room and for any recording or remote participants. Please speak directly into the microphone as clearly and as closely as possible. There are currently a limited number of microphones available. If needed, officers will assist by moving microphones around the room. Thank you for your patience and cooperation. Oh, not better. If any members of the public are in attendance, which I believe we do have some, just some information. The restroom facilities for ladies are on this floor, and for gentlemen are halfway down the stairs. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, officers will escort everybody out of the building to the nearest fire safety point in the car park. Members of the public are free to leave the meeting at any time. Please raise your hand if you wish to leave, and please be patient whilst a member of security comes to collect you. Finally, please be advised that abuse or intimidation of any kind will not be tolerated. Any disturbance will result in the meeting being adjourned. Anyone who is deemed to breach these requirements will be warned and asked to refrain. And if that behaviour persists, they will be required to leave the meeting. So we start with the preliminaries. Apologies for absence.
We've received apologies, Chair, from Councillors Pryke, Scoot and Savikian. Thank you.
Does any member have any declarations of interest in respect of any items on the agenda? So we now come to, are there any minutes of the meeting for the 17th of July? Members have had copies. Are there any issues to be raised on them? Are members happy for me to sign them? Is that agreed? Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the public? Received 2 clear working days prior to this meeting.
There are none received for this meeting, Chair.
Thank you. So we now move to the agenda items. The first item is Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership. Our first item of business this evening is Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership with Steve Batchelor, Senior Manager of the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership, in attendance. Stephen will address the committee. You've had a copy of his report, and we'll roughly run through it. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everybody. I think with the appendix, the report's about 300 pages long, so if I just go through every word, then there won't be any time left for difficult questions, and then I can just walk out of here. Road safety is an emotive topic. It's really easy sometimes to forget what we're actually talking about when we're going through numbers and statistics, talking about fatalities and life-changing serious injuries. So I just wanted to take a second at the beginning just to make that point that every single one of these things that we're talking about is potentially a huge tragedy that affects communities, affects families. So I appreciate it's a bit dry, and I apologise for that, but I do acknowledge that there's a much more serious issue here at hand. So the Road Safety Partnership has actually been in existence now for 25 years. And great progress has been made. When it started, there was over 800 people every year killed or seriously injured, and we are now about half of that. But I think we can also acknowledge that there's still a great deal of work to be done. 52 people lost their lives on the roads of Lincolnshire last year, and a further 379 people were seriously injured as well. Overall, it's about 1,700 injury collisions, and that doesn't even account for all of the damage only and near misses that we all know about as well. So far this year, it's been slightly more positive, if we can talk in those terms. So 22 fatalities to the point that we are at now. For the same period last year, it was 38. So that's a significant reduction, but still it's 22 fatalities. Similarly, we've seen around a 7% reduction year on year so far in serious injuries as well. Regarding the problems that we face in Lincolnshire, you'll all be aware of them. Traditionally, the economy of the county is based around a mixture of agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, particularly down the East Coast and down into Boston. It's significant because it introduces a wide range of different types of road users to our network: HGVs, caravans, motorcyclists, tourists, people who are not familiar with the roads. Clearly, there's also seasonal fluctuations that have an impact as well. In terms of the data from last year, the majority of our fatal and serious injuries occurred on the rural road network, which is difficult for me because I can't say the word rural very well and I keep having to. Casualties are much more likely to be male, upwards of 70 to 80%. Collisions are distributed throughout the whole of the county, but the highest percentage is in East Lindsey. The highest risk groups that we have remain two-wheel motor vehicle riders, young drivers between the ages of 17 and 24, and mature road users, so 60 plus years. And I always caveat that by saying that is the Department for Transport's term for being a mature road user. I'm not suggesting everyone over 60 is mature, although they may well be. We saw an increase last year in high-powered motorcycle riders being fatal or seriously injured, as well as pedal cyclists and, as I mentioned before, younger drivers. But we did see reductions in some of our other vulnerable road users, including children between the ages of 0 to 15, pedestrians, and low motorcycle riders, powered road riders. And specifically with regards to the fatals, just to back up some of the points I just made there, 75% of fatalities in Lincolnshire in 2024 were male. 92% of those fatal collisions happened in fine weather and without high winds, which always surprises me because I would have thought the weather would play a more significant part, but it really doesn't. 83% of our fatal collisions happened on the A and B class roads. And the highest contributory factor defined by Stats 19 when police officers fill in the forms was driver, rider being aggressive, dangerous or reckless. Very briefly then, in terms of the Road Safety Partnership, sometimes people think that we're some independent body. We're not. We're made up by our parent agencies. So we were formed in 2000 and we are made up by the Police and Crime Commissioner, Lincolnshire Police, Lincolnshire County Council, National Highways, the Fire and Rescue Service and the East Midlands Ambulance Service. The partnership was the first of its kind in the country to co-locate forensic collision investigators and casualty reduction officers from the police with the County Council's accident investigation and prevention and road safety teams, and create a co-located multi-agency centred road safety unit. Fire and Rescue Service also have staff, and we do a wide range of activities that you'll see in the report. Our priorities for 2025 are unsurprisingly based on the statistics: young drivers, mature drivers, two-wheel motor vehicle users, pedal cyclists, pedestrians and business users. In terms of the activity that comes out of the Road Safety Partnership, in terms of engineering, we deliver AIP work, so accident investigation works. We look at over 1,000 sites and links across the county every single year. You're looking at 5 years worth of collision data, and then we refine it down to a number of sites that need action. We also completed 78 road safety audits looking at new roads or significant changes to the roads as well. With regards to enforcement through our partners of Lincolnshire Police and staff based at the Road Safety Partnership, we're responsible for all of speed camera activity, be that average, fixed or mobile. We currently have 10 average speed camera systems, 37 statics and about 100 active mobile camera sites. We also manage Operation Octane, alongside our roads policing colleagues, which is targeting motorcycle riders for both enforcement when necessary, but primarily education as well. We do a lot of seasonal campaigns such as drink and drug driving around Christmas in the summer. In terms of some of the activities outside of enforcement, we're responsible for Community Speedwatch. We now have 298 member parishes or towns and councils that are participating in either or a combination of passive speed limit reminder signs, vehicle activated signs, and volunteer speed monitoring groups. We have 107 trained community speed watch groups, and we've trained over 1,500 volunteers. More than 45,000 warning letters have been sent to motorists since the scheme started in 2018. We also manage Operation Octane, which allows anybody, including members of the public, to submit dashcam footage of alleged road traffic offences. In 2024, we received 2,262 submissions, and after review, this resulted in 995 being processed as potential offences. Offences that we processed included due care and attention, reasonable consideration to other road users, failure to comply with traffic light signals, and failure to comply with solid white lines, and finally mobile phone use. And very briefly, last thing, in terms of education, training and publicity, we deliver the National Driver Offender Retraining Schemes, including speed awareness courses. The Bike Safe initiative runs out of the Road Safety Partnership, now delivered by our road policing colleagues. Biker Down training delivered by fire and rescue colleagues occurs at the Road Safety Partnership. We use shiny side up signing to target motorcycle riders. We provide our Too Fast Too Soon, which is a Prince Michael International Award-winning theatre production that goes into schools and colleges. We go to various events to try and talk to people and try and get across our messages. We also have a comprehensive curriculum in schools, in primary schools. It's mostly dealing with how to keep themselves and others safe now and in the future, the road environment they're going to be in and how it functions and how to influence changes around them. And then at secondary school, understanding unsafe situations, developing coping strategies and understanding consequences of risk. We delivered education into schools to over 20,000 pupils last year. There's loads of other stuff I could probably go into, but I don't want to bore you too much. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.
Councillor Pierpoint.
Thank you very much for that report. I'm just curious, and I don't know, I'm quite innocent on this. Your speed camera vans, do they record people who are not taxed and insured? Because there's lots of people driving around on the roads at the moment who are not taxed and not insured. Do they pick up that information as well?
Thank you, Councillor. Not routinely. So if somebody drives past and they're targeted and they're not exceeding the speed limit, that information isn't recorded. So it's only people that have committed an offence that's recorded. So once that goes back into the office, those other issues would be brought up there, would be raised there, but not routinely if somebody was just driving past like they would be on an ANPR camera.
Do you think we should be recording people? Because a lot of the people out there are not taxed, they're not insured, and are a danger to society. Do use the roads probably not as properly as some people do, and consequently they seem to be riding around and getting away with murder. I'm just conscious of the fact that, you know, perhaps there ought to be a system in place through your organisation where this information is fed back to the police so that these people can be contacted because they're not insured or they're not taxed.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I agree. I think that's a good idea. I'd like to give a good reason as to why it's not being done now. Other than the technology itself can't do it. The technology we're using can't, but that's not to say there couldn't be other technology in the vehicle as well. So if you'll allow me, I'll take that away as an action and I'll report back to the committee.
Is there anybody driving around picking these up at all? Are any units driving around?
Yeah, so all of the police vehicles have ANPR cameras in them, to the best of my knowledge, and there are ANPR cameras all across the county as well. So they are being picked up in a variety of different sources, just not through our vehicles at this time.
Since you scrapped the tax disc, obviously I think people have taken advantage of that situation because they are driving around without tax and insurance. And, you know, I'm quite worried there's a lot of people. I mean, I've been in front of two people in Boston driving carelessly, and you know, I think to myself, are these people taxed and insured? And I hate them to run into me or run into somebody else and injure them. Anyway, thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Councillor Richard Austin.
Thank you, Chair. I was very impressed that you have 298 speed watch groups in operation now. How effective do you think they are? Did more effort be put into getting parish councils and so on? Do you think they're good value for money as far as you're concerned, and the amount of effort it needs on your part?
Thank you, Councillor. So 104 groups actually stood on the side of the road or trained up to stand on the side of the road, but 298 parishes or towns and councils who are in the scheme, but they might just have signing. So they might not be doing the monitoring on the roadside. But as I mentioned in there, that's over 1,500 people that have been trained up. Now, it's an area we sometimes get pushback, particularly from communities, because sometimes they will feel as if they're out taking action. They're doing something to make people feel safer within their communities, but maybe there isn't enough action from the police to back them up and support them. That is something I always try and lead with up front, because it's an area we recognise that we need to do better in. But what I would say on the other side of that is anybody can join. So any parish or community could set these up, and there's no criteria. So it's not like with speed cameras or other interventions where you're waiting for statistics, be that speed or collisions, before an action can be taken. So sometimes it doesn't need police intervention, and sometimes if you were to prioritise, it wouldn't meet the criteria in that side of things. But what it is doing, it's making sure that everybody that drives through there knows they're getting a repeater of the speed limit with the signs, and they know that the community believe that there's concerns and they're making a difference. I mentioned there 45,000 warning letters sent out in Lincolnshire alone since it started in 2018. I think that's incredibly valuable, because sometimes people might not realise the impact it's having on communities, or they may have made an error. But it's letting them know that somebody was watching on this occasion, and the next time it could be the police. I think that has huge value. When you look at the number of letter 2s and letter 3s that go out, so if somebody's already had one and in the next 6 months they get a second or a third, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the single digit percentage. So again, that suggests that it's not repeat offenders. And the idea as well that on the third letter that gets delivered, hand delivered by a roads policing officer to their home, I think has a real big impact as well. So what we're looking at is potentially a location that would have nothing, or all of the things that I've just mentioned there. So for me, that has huge value.
Councillor Izard.
Good evening, everyone. Very good report. Lots of data, lots of information. And I've probably missed the points that I'm about to raise. But on page 10, under 2.13, when you say about the following outline some of the key data for fatal collisions, is there a way to break down how much of that was involved in drinks and drugs incidents?
There is. I don't have that with me today, but we certainly can do. What I'll have to apologise, because finding the points that I would want to say without going through the whole report, I've kind of got rid of all of the numbers and the pages, so mine is slightly different to yours. Shorten it down to that, so my apologies. In the appendix document, it does list drug driving statistics in there as well, but it's very easy for me to find out and tell you how many of those fatalities involved that, and I can again feed that back in for the minutes.
That's lovely, thank you for that. And on page 8, 2.6, it's good to see that the data shows that there's a substantial reduction in killed and serious injury. Is that because older cars are coming off the road and newer cars are on the road and there's more safety? Could that have an impact on these statistics?
There's something that's gaining a lot of traction at the moment. It's called the safe system approach. Some people will be aware of the term Vision Zero. So it started from that, and it was the idea that we don't accept that being killed or seriously injured is an inevitable consequence of driving. So it's not to say that we expect there will be 0 fatalities or 0 collisions at any time soon. It's to say we don't accept it's an inevitable consequence of driving. And part of that is every single element of the system that could have an impact has to work together. So things like improving vehicles, making them more modern, the automation and safety features that come in, that plays a significant part. Ensuring that there's a significant and visible enforcement present. so that when people do ignore the law, then they have a fear of the consequences of that, which prevents people doing it in the future. Ensuring that the design of the roads is good, that they're engineered in a good way, and that they're maintained well as well. And then, of course, there's the element of drivers and riders and people that are using the roads and taking accountability for their own safety as well. So all of those things have to work together. So I think there's been a lot of those that have had an impact on the collisions going down, a lot of the work done through us and our parent agencies as well. And all of that, of course, is offset by ever increasing numbers of people using the roads as well. And then there's emergent trends like e-scooters, e-bikes, etc., which present a new challenge. So, I don't think we're ever going to be sat here talking about how fantastic we've done. We know there's so much work to be done, but I think all of those things have had an impact.
Okay, thank you for that. And the last point is more an observation, obviously on page 7, the front page, where we calculate it's 2.4 million for a fatality. I'm still kind of concerned about our junction at Hubbard's Bridge and Longwick Road. It's a very difficult junction, and it's even I've had a near miss on that junction. I'm just wondering whether there's a business case to say, or we have had fatalities in that area, a business case to say that if you're going to cost it a 2.4, which I know is just a figure in that sense, could more be done at that junction in the future?
It's one that periodically returns. My view on there is that quite a lot has been done. There's been a reduction in the speed limit. There's an average speed camera system in place. I know there's been enhanced warning signs placed, so quite a lot has already been done. If collisions still continue to occur there, what I would say, sometimes fatals becoming serious and serious becoming slights, whilst I'm not saying that it's acceptable, they are still improvements. So if the fatalities and the serious is reducing in severity, that's positive. If the overall numbers reduce, that's positive. But if you believe there's still a risk, and I'm fairly confident actually, we do have an inquiry about that junction again being looked into by the Road Safety Partnership at the moment. So I can certainly look again and see what else could potentially be done.
Yes, if there is an ongoing sort of inquiry into it, I would like to be informed of that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Pierpoint.
Just an observation for you. I've been travelling from Old Leek, where I live in north of Boston, to Leicester on business quite a few times the last 18 years since I've lived here. And your camera vans tend to be in the same position all the time. They never seem to move anywhere else, so people get quite familiar where the positioning is. I'm just wondering whether you ought to think about moving them somewhere else, because everywhere I drive, I know exactly where your vehicles are going to be. So if I'm being naughty and going a little bit higher than I should do, I know where to slow down. So I just wonder whether they should be in different positions, because they seem to be in the same place, all the way from there right across through Grantham, outside of the Lincolnshire border. Your vehicles are in the same position all the time.
You've done it now. I'm gonna move a few hundred meters down the road on that particular route. It's a much wider debate, so I don't want to take over the meeting. So I'll try and do it in the briefest possible terms. There's two schools of thought, and there's merit to both. One is a sort of random road watch, where, as you say, people don't know where they're going to be, and then the fear of being caught has a wider impact. If you have to have enough enforcement for people to still realistically see those vehicles and expect them to be anywhere. But let's assume in an ideal world that is the case, that would have a huge impact across the whole network. When you have limited resources, which we do with 8,900 kilometres, we have 5 mobile camera vans. We take an approach where there is a criteria, and we prioritise sites based on risk. So the highest risk ones, if they meet the criteria outlined by the Department for Transport in Circular 01/2007, then average speed cameras and fixed speed cameras can be installed. We've used the guidance to our advantage to ensure that we have an element of public concern, but still the statistics, speeding and collisions, need to show that there's a problem. And then we have over 200 sites that have met that criteria across the county, and we rotate them in, so 100 at a time on the books, and then we rotate those as well. So in essence, for the next 6 months, we're going to be at the same 100 sites across those 8,900 kilometres, and all of those have met the criteria, all have had collisions in the past, and all have severe levels of speeding. The problem I have is if I take it away from any of those sites, I go to a site that doesn't have the same level of risk and the same level of speeding and proven collisions as well. However, I also recognise that there is a risk there, and it could happen tomorrow that a collision occurs. So as a much bigger debate, but that's the two sort of sides of it that we're sat on.
Councillor Dorian.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'd also like to congratulate you overall on the work you've done and the whole partnership team behind you. I think it's incredible to see that in the last 5 years, the number of killed and seriously injured has reduced by 100 individuals. I think that's incredible. I know you had a blip in 2017, that's annotated here. Perhaps we'll never know the reasons why, but that's 100 families that haven't lost a limb, haven't lost a job, haven't lost a home, or whatever the impact is of being seriously injured in an accident. So very well done for that. I like the rounded approach you've taken, both to the engineering works on the road, the highways, and the education work you do, and that nudge for the driver who gets a bit absent-minded and gets reminded that you are just gone over the speed limit, but thank you for slowing down. I think that changes hearts and minds far better than penalty points or a fine. I really do, having been the victim of both, well, not the victim, the perpetrator. Sorry, Ian. But what I want to come on to is last year I attended a conference, and one of the speakers was Chris Boardman, who's the National Active Travel Czar. And one of the things that councils have to be cognizant of, especially with climate change impacts, is encourage and the fact that we have an increasingly unhealthy population. We need to be encouraging our residents to get involved in active travel more and more. And it seemed to me that Holland, that was one of the examples given, is way ahead of the rest of Europe in doing that. And one of the reasons for that is they've changed their legislation. So that, for instance, an example would be if a car is in collision with a cyclist, and obviously cycling around Boston is the ultimate active travel after walking, of course, is that if there is a collision between a car and a cyclist, the presumption of guilt is on the driver of the vehicle, not the cyclist. And I think that changes the whole mood music, doesn't it? Is there any moves for similar things to happen in this country so that we encourage more and more people to take part in active travel rather than get in a car or a bus?
Thank you, Councillor. I think in typically British fashion, we don't go as far as some of our European and Scandinavian colleagues. I think the changes in the highway code last year were very much an effort to move towards that. So the new hierarchy, where those that are most vulnerable have to be protected by those in the next category, is exactly what you're talking about, without maybe the legal emphasis on it, because so much of the highway code is, you know, should or could as opposed to must. But I do believe that that's there for a very good reason. It's outlining exactly what you've highlighted, that we must protect those that are more vulnerable amongst us. And I think, speaking to my police colleagues in the collision investigation unit, that I think that's the starting position. The expectation is that the larger vehicle, whatever that may be in the scenario, is going to be the one that should have taken the action to prevent something happening to an individual that's more vulnerable. But I think you still see it in pretty much day in, day out. I can't remember, bearing in mind the legislation, the highway code changed to make it absolutely clear that if a pedestrian is waiting to cross as you approach a junction, the vehicle has to stop and let them cross. I don't remember ever seeing anybody stop. Even now, the pedestrian waits because you're not going to step out and hope the vehicle does what it says in the highway code. And I think similarly, some of the rhetoric I see online about pedal cyclists from other users and about horse riders by other road users baffles me. It really does. The idea that we can't share the network together. I think the presumption is absolutely, as you've outlined. Whether that ever goes to something more stringent like in the Scandinavian countries, I honestly don't know. But it would be a national thing that they would have to do as opposed to a local.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It would have to be national, but it would be an organisation like yourselves that would then lobby and with, I suppose, local government to make that change happen. I have to say that I love that piece of the highway code that vehicles have to stop at the junction, and I do. But what I find is that pedestrians don't realise that they've got the right of way. So I do wonder, thank you for bringing that up, whether there is a piece of educative work that needs doing just to remind, although they've got to be aware of the surroundings, of course, and not just step out. And I think the other point is the cost of someone being killed on the roads. I think, and that's steadily increased over the last few years, hasn't it, from 2 million or 2.1 million to 2.4. I think if that figure was more widely known by the driving population, and concerned parents of young drivers, that would resonate, and I think that would maybe start to filter through people's consciousness to take a different approach to their driving habits.
Yeah, and I'm always really loath to blame people because people don't like it. Nobody likes to be blamed. But I mentioned before that over 90% of the collisions that we have are some sort of user error. That our most significant stats 19 contributory factor was driver rider aggressive, in a hurry, not being considerate. But at some point, there's only so much that all of the authorities, all of the bodies, all of the charities can do. People have to take a sense of social and personal responsibility and say that we all do share the road and we have a duty of care. You can't imagine any other world in which the threat of serious injury or fatal would just be taken so blasé by so many people. Nobody in this room would walk into a bar and start a fight, I would imagine, knowing that something terrible could happen. Maybe I don't know all you people, some of you might, I don't know. But we get in a car in a metal box that can kill people instantly and don't seem to think twice about the aggression that comes out and the sort of the desire to get where I'm going, and regardless of anybody else. Simply baffling. So I have concern about, for example, highlighting to pedestrians that you've got right of way, step out. Because I know what'll happen. The car driver, yeah. So the education piece is definitely with the drivers. But just to let you know, we have a meeting coming up in the next 2 weeks with the active travel team. So they had a new member join. So we had a catch up about a week ago just to introduce the partnership. So the traffic regulation order team that do things like parking outside of schools, speed limits, etc. My road safety officer teams who will go into schools and education, and the active travel team are all getting together to start talking about the types of issues. How can we get people out and about using those modes of transport, walking, pedestrians, etc., pedal cycles. So again, I think hopefully some good work will come out of that too.
Thank you very much, Steve. I think we'll all agree this was a very interesting report with a lot of information from us. I think, and thank every member for their questions. I think they've raised some good points. You're going to come back to us on a couple of issues. But again, thanks for your time. Thank you for coming. And we'll see you again next year, I suppose. Thank you. Okay. So all the questions will be noted, and obviously we'll get back when we get some of the answers. Which brings us to item 2 on the agenda. Our second item of business this evening is Anglian Water Public Affairs team with Emily Linsdell and the Public Affairs team in attendance. Emily will address the meeting. Just for clarity, this is the first of a series of things we'll be doing about issues we've had, particularly during the summer with the mains and things. The point of tonight is for us to get information about the situation and the problems that Anglian Water suffer. Tonight we're not trying to solve any problems tonight. We will come back to this issue. So this is for gaining information. So if you'd like to do your report, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us along tonight. I'm Emily Linsdell, Regional Engagement Advisor at Anglian Water, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, so I'm Grant Tuss, Regional Engagement Manager. So I work in our Public Affairs team in our Corporate Directorate. And my role and Emily's role is to engage with local politicians, councils, NGOs, MPs anybody is elected, really, to talk about Anglian Water and what we're doing in your particular part of the world.
Thank you, Grant. So yeah, I'm Michael Stewart. I'm the network manager for the Grantham area, covering Boston, Peterborough, Bourne, Spalding. And it's my role basically to ensure that our technicians are out there appeasing all of our customers. We respond to burst mains, so quite prominent respond here today. Burst mains, we look after leakage, any customer queries, anything like that. And obviously, like I say, we manage the network. So it's our job to provide wholesome water from the source to the tap.
Thank you. So we're just going to give a few slides to give a little bit of an overview of Anglian Water, who we are and what we do. If my slides want to move on. Come on. We're going out again. There we go. We're in. Fantastic. So we've got the largest geographical area of any water company. So we go up from the Humber Bank to Southern Essex, Milton Keynes, and over to Norfolk as well. So of course that means that we have a lot of assets to maintain to serve our 7 million customers, and conserving water, as Michael will get onto, is extremely crucial for our operations. And so we are leading with our smart metering program. So at the moment we've got 88% of our customers on smart meters, and by 2030 all of our customers will have one installed. And through our work to reduce leakage, we actually put into supply the same amount of water now as we did in privatisation, despite our population that we serve increasing by 30%. So massive success to Michael and the rest of our water team. So to do this, we of course have to have a lot of people. So across the region, we employ about 6,000 people, a further 3,000 through our supply chain. And as we look to deliver our next business plan, known as AMP8, which will cover 2025 to 2030, we will employ about another 7,000 across the region. Hope they move on easy this time. Yeah. There we go. So I just thought that we'd highlight a few of the challenges that we face. So the first one, climate change. It will not be news to any of you that the east of England is feeling climate change more than anywhere else in the UK. So nearly a third of our region is below sea level, and that means that a lot of our assets are, of course, low lying in the ground and can be impacted by extreme weather. 2023 was the wettest year on record in the east of England, and I know that we did see some impact of that on our assets, and I appreciate there were some challenges around here as well. So high levels of growth in our region. So our region is home to 4 of the fastest growing cities in the country, and in the next 20 years we expect an additional 700,000 residents. And unfortunately, there has been a little bit of an issue with us understanding where growth is going to be delivered. So, for example, the government's growth aspirations were not known when the water industry submitted their business plans for AMP8. So the uplift where that may be needed was not necessarily included in the plans, but we'll do everything that we can going forward to work with local authorities to deliver that investment where it's needed for growth. And lastly, our say in planning. So a lot of people are surprised that we are not statutory consultees in planning applications. And also developments with planning permission have the automatic right to connect to our network, regardless of whether we have issues or concerns with capacity. That being said, we proactively respond to major developments, so developments of more than 10 dwellings, and also where we are asked to comment, we will as well. So these challenges bring about and worsen storm overflow spills. And so storm overflows, just give you a little bit of an introduction as to what they are. So a lot of our sewer system is combined. So it takes both surface water, rainwater and wastewater as well. So this means when we have heavy rainfall events, our sewers can become overloaded. So storm overflows were designed as safety release valves to essentially protect homes and businesses from flooding. All of these are permitted by the Environment Agency for use, but it is worth saying that these are legacy systems. These were put in the Victorian times, and these days separate systems for foul and surface water are built. All of our storm overflows are fitted with an event duration monitor, which monitors when the overflow starts discharging and how long it discharges for. And all of that data is available to within an hour of the spill commencing on our website. And also we've got about 22,000 other sewer monitors in the network, which measure how our network is reacting to changes in weather so that we can get out there and sort any issue that may potentially be arising, and also know where to target investment as well. So what do storm overflows look like in Boston Borough? So across the area, there are 13 storm overflows, and of course, all of these are covered by an event duration monitor. It is worth noting that we only reached 100% EDM coverage in 2023. So if you're looking at data prior to that and trying to compare to now, it probably will not give you a very representative view. And of course, rainfall does impact whether the numbers go up or down. And as you can see this year, our numbers are a lot lower because it has been a very dry year. But of course, it's worth noting that this data is only up to July, as that's all we can share, as that is what has been fully validated by the Environment Agency. So what are we going to do about them? So we are investing more than ever to tackle storm overflows across the region in AMP7. So from 2020 to 2025, we surrendered 10% of our total storm overflow permits. However, it's not just easy for us to remove them. This would require replumbing of towns and cities. So where we cannot remove them, we've got a plan to deal with them. So we submitted a storm overflow action plan to DEFRA, which highlights how we are going to reduce spills by 17% by 2030. And it contains a detailed improvement plan for every storm overflow to make sure that they are not discharging more than 10 times by 2050. I know that 2050 is a little while away, so don't worry, we are where we can in the highest priority sites, taking action before then as well. So our 2025-2030 business plan has been geared towards tackling storm overflows. We're going to spend £1 billion on monitoring and improvements of these, primarily to deal with the excess water in our sewers. If we get that out, we can help solve storm overflows and also flooding. So looking at removing surface water connections, building sustainable drainage systems and storm tanks. And we'll be doing greater monitoring, jetting, and at some high priority sites where there may be a bathing water or a triple SI, we'll be looking to put in UV antibacterial removal as well. And this is part of our overall environmental package, which will be doubling from our last business plan to 4 billion. And again, we will very much focus on nature-based solutions such as sustainable drainage systems and wetlands. And where these discharges are not permitted by the Environment Agency, we're very clear that these are our pollutions. And we are committed to reducing our pollutions. So by 2030, we're committed to reducing our pollutions by 41%. And last year, our shareholders injected an additional 100 million to allow us to fast track these improvements. And this is about blockage prevention, improving assets that we already have. So a big part of this, as I just mentioned, blockages, is how our customers use the sewers. Yeah. So 80% of sewer floodings, which of course have a massive impact on customers and the environment as well, are caused by avoidable blockages. So these blockages that we're seeing are caused by wet wipes, sanitary items, and fats, oils and grease from cooking. So every year we clear about 35,000 blockages on our network, and pretty much nearly all of these are avoidable. So we've got a new communications campaign and we're asking customers to just bin it. Only flush the 3 Ps, pee, poo and paper, toilet paper, bin wet wipes and sanitary products. And once you've used any grease and fat after cooking, let it solidify and pop it in the bin. We would very much welcome you sharing this messaging for us to help us educate residents. So if this is something that the committee or the council could do, please let us know and we can share some resources with you. Okay, I'm going to move on to Michael now, and he's going to cover some of the birth in the area, as I know that is an area of interest for the committee.
Thank you, Emily. So we've got it on the board, haven't we? So this summer, 2025, has been extremely challenging. It's been one of the hottest summers we've had on record. We've seen the most, I think we've seen the most amount of burst mains, particularly within obviously the Boston area. And the reason we see that in Boston is because population growth, climate change as well. So essentially we've got lots of 2 inches, 2-inch, 3, 4 inch AC mains that are quite susceptible to climate change, ground movement. The population has grown quite a lot within the Boston area. So what we are seeing is in the summer period, especially, the higher demand is creating the velocity within the network flow wise, which then creates in turn low pressure. So we're seeing a lot of low pressure within the summer months, not necessarily in the winter months, and that's because of the demand increase. And a lot of our mains are down sort of old farm tracks, again, sort of unmade roads and things like that, which means that they are again susceptible to the ground movement. In regards to the repair aspect, they do require road closures most of the time due to the width of the roads too, which is a nuisance to road users, I know. So what we're doing about it, we are this within the next 5 years looking at replacing 1,134 kilometres of main, which works out around sort of 4 kilometres a week. So we are committed to that, and if we're not, then obviously we get punished by Ofwat. So there is a lot of incentive for us to get that done, and we are already making track with that on the board. There is the purple lines there, I believe, is where we're focusing on first of all. We are open to suggestions for other areas for replacement. So if there is a particular area that is causing issues that isn't on the list for replacement, then we will add it to that list to make sure it is replaced. It's quite an agricultural area. The area has built up and grown massively over the years, and the network simply isn't sustainable, isn't able to sustain the customers that are fed off of it anymore. And we're aware of that, hence why we're looking to replace it. Can you move on to the next slide, please? So what else are we doing about it? Well, I did touch on climate change. I haven't touched yet on drought. Or environmental protection and population growth. What we're doing to tackle all that in a we're looking to install a 4.5 kilometres worth of brand new reinforcement main. So this isn't replacing what we have. This is a new main that will bring more water into the area to help tackle the challenges I just mentioned. So, yeah, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. We will stick with the clean water side of things, as I know you were keen for an update on the Fens Reservoir that we are building. Lincolnshire, sorry, wrong reservoir, 2 of them. Yeah. So the Lincolnshire Reservoir, as I am in Lincolnshire, that we're building between Grantham and Boston. So eventually this will supply enough water for 500,000 homes, and also importantly help us to reduce demands on sensitive water environments such as chalk streams. And this goes beyond creating just a new water supply. We want to create a place where people, nature and water come together with a design that integrates into the surrounding landscape and connects local communities. So it will be in supply at 2039 at the earliest, and we have already carried out 2 consultations. In April this year, We commenced work to develop our proposals further, including technical studies, and also part of that is engagement with local communities and stakeholders. You may be aware of the community liaison group that we run, and I believe you've attended. Yeah. So next steps are we plan to run a third consultation in spring next year, and then the final statutory pre-application consultation will be in 2027. From there, we will be submitting the development consent order application in late 28-29. The decision will be due a couple of years after that, and then construction can begin a couple of years after that. Now, I also know that you were curious to know if this is going to change. Sorry, I'm starting ahead. There we go. Curious to know about our work to encourage water saving. So our ultimate aim would be that new houses aren't designed to flush the toilets with the world-class drinking water that we supply in this country. But that is quite a big dream, obviously. That would require changes in legislation, in regulation, but that is something that we are actively engaging DEFRA on. So in the meantime, thinking smaller than changing the whole way that the country builds, we have a dedicated team for integrated water management and progressing water smart communities. So just to highlight a couple of pieces of their work. So they worked with Enabling Water Smart Communities, which is an Ofwat innovation project, to develop a new guide to support responding to the urgent need for water smart homes in the UK for architects, developers, planners, etc. We've worked with partners to develop a shared set of standards to support local planning authorities in delivering sustainable growth and optimal water use. And also we have a developer environmental incentive programme, which offers monetary incentive for each property that can demonstrate that they've taken measures to ensure that a below a threshold of water would be used a day. And our growth and planning teams actively engage with local planning authorities on their local plans, and they comment on how these could be improved in terms of efficiency. And of course, we do lots of customer engagement on this side as well. So as well as the blockage stuff of just bin it, we do a lot of communications about the need to save water and encouraging long-term behaviour change. We have our community hub, which travels around the country into hotspot areas where our data tells us that we need to drive some behaviour change most, and we will be there for days just sort of educating customers and engaging with the community. Then I thought I'd finish with our investment plan for this AMP. So across the Anglian Water region, we've proposed to invest £11 billion to meet the needs of our growing region, increase our resilience to climate change, and also focus on investing in the things that matter most to our customers. So this will include, as I said earlier, doubling our environmental investment, building the 2 new reservoirs, continuing to construct our strategic pipeline alliance, and building interconnectors. And of course, within this, we know that we have to support our customers. So we are launching a £5 million medical needs scheme. This is fully funded by our shareholders and will provide bill support to customers with specific medical needs. And in Boston specifically, we're going to invest over 22 million to improve river and seawater quality and supply resilience. I won't go into the water side again, as Michael's fabulously explained that already, but we'll be doing a scheme to remove more phosphorus at Frampton Water Recycling Centre, and this just helps us to protect the receiving watercourse, as phosphorus is very detrimental to watercourses, causes eutrophication and really impacts the water quality. In AMP7, we did a source appointment study to look into whether Anglian water assets were impacting the West Wash shellfish harvesting areas. And we identified 2 things that we could do to improve the water quality in the Wash. So one is a scheme to reduce the amount of bacteria discharged in the final effluent, which is the fully treated water, at Boston Water Recycling Centre. And the second is a spill reduction scheme at East Side Pumping Station, the pumping station just before the Water Recycling Centre, to achieve less than 10 spills a year. And we will be doing both of these pieces of work in this asset management period. Right. Oh. And that's our introduction done. So if you've got any questions.
Thank you very much, Emily and your team. I found that really quite interesting. There's a lot of information there that I wasn't aware of. So do members have questions? Councillor Alison Austin.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a few years ago now since I was battling with residents in Middlegate Road in Frampton, where it always seems to be July or August when there's heavy summer rain, and the problem was of basically sewage coming up through the manhole covers in the middle of the road. And it's then because of the age of some of the infrastructure, for want of a better word, that the wastewater and the surface water, they were commingling. Mm-hmm. Now, is this a thing of the past now, or does it still go on? I don't know if any of you recall that situation I had. I think it was 2 consecutive years in Frampton, but it was very difficult. You know, when you've got basically sewage lapping. I remember bungalows with sewage lapping at the door, basically, and, you know, quite unacceptable, obviously. But can we be assured that this sort of situation is a thing of the past now?
Yeah, absolutely. We agree. It's unacceptable. And unfortunately, it is the symptom of those sewers being combined and the rainfall being in the system. In regards to Frampton Middlegate Lane specifically, I know that we have installed non-return valves at 8 or 9 properties to help protect them from flooding. And also in our business plan, we have proposed a scheme to divert the rising main from the location it is now. I can have a look for you to see where this has got to now, but I would imagine, as we're still consulting with Ofwat on our business plan, that we may not have confirmation at the moment, but it's one that I can keep an eye on for you and definitely come back to the committee with.
Thank you.
I
just sort of supplement it. There's a very large development going on the other side of the road. I think it's by Alison Holmes or someone like that, but it's a very, very extensive development. But hopefully there, all the foul water will be going direct to the sewage farm, which, when all said and done, is not very far away. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pierpoint, then Councillor Doreen.
Just to say that I do actually live in Old Leek, and we've had some issues with that old water pumping station there, which is occasionally broken down and caused all sorts of problems. I have to say that it's nice that after 18 years that you're now going to start doing some work there, because I've got all the communication from you, and I see on your presentation there that you're looking at that. So that's good news. I would like to say that really, I'm going to give you some compliment here, that everything I've done with Anglia Water, all the complaints I've made and all the problems I've had, has always been dealt with very efficient and professional staff. When I've had people coming out to me, your engineering people will come out to me, because I live in a bungalow and obviously I've had a few issues there. They've been very, very good. I've been very pleased with the way they've looked after me, dealt with me. You ring your office in Lincoln, they give you some good answers, they look after you. So I have to say I'm very impressed with Anglia Water. I used to be in Severn Trent before I moved over here, so I have to say that I'm very impressed, and I think you're doing a very, very good job. I'm keen to know a little bit about these reservoirs and what sort of costs are involved. And you're talking about 2039. It's a long time to wait, but you know, obviously it's a big program, big project. What sort of costs are involved in that, and will it affect our bills?
Good question. Yeah, so you can imagine the costs are quite eye-watering. I think there were last we heard was about £3 or £4 billion each, and the way we're going to pay for those will be through customer bills, but over the long period. So you won't suddenly get a massive bill increase and then expect to pay that. So in effect, that money comes from shareholders or investment, and then they get paid back through customer bills over generations, like all of our assets do. But it'll probably be a bit like you might have heard of the super sewer in London that was built by Thames recently. So that was basically delivered by a separate business that was set up by Thames Water. I'd imagine that would be the same for the 2 reservoirs, because no one's built a reservoir in a generation in the UK, so we can't really look and see how it's done. So we're sort of learning as we go along and trying to find the best solution for the best deal for our customers and for our environment to deliver that as quickly and as cost effective as we can. But yeah, I mean, there are big projects there. As Emily mentioned, 2039 to as earliest into supply. Several hoops go through with DCOs, as you imagine, through planning. But it's good that this government and the previous government have supported it. So we're pushing as fast as we can to get them built, because we know how desperately they're needed.
Thank you. Just want to say again, your customer care, your customer communication is excellent. And you're very good at being proactive in keeping people informed of what you're doing. And I've got to congratulate on that. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. We'll feed that back. Thank you.
Councillor Doreen, then Councillor Izard.
Thank you. Are you going to make your slides available after the meeting?
Yeah, I can certainly share them. Yeah.
That'd be useful. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. So thank you for your presentation and sharing the information you did. I found it really interesting. Off the top of your head, do you happen to know the 4 fastest growing cities in the country? You said they're all in our region.
Yes. So Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
Peterborough.
Yeah.
Cambridge. And what's the last one?
Norwich.
Go on.
Is it?
No.
Northampton.
Yeah.
Norwich or Northampton one. Okay. Thank you. If you provide that accurate data, then when you provide that, I'm not testing you, but I was curious to learn that. Thank you. You also mentioned that every domestic customer you said every customer is entitled to join the supply, but you didn't say whether it was domestic, commercial or business. So can you clarify? I assume every domestic customer of any new property that's built is entitled to join your supply. Yeah?
Yeah.
That is right. What about business and commerce industry?
So am I correct in thinking that that we have to put an application through and that our processing is different based on the amount of water that they predict that they are going to use? I don't know if you want to expand on that.
No, yeah. So in statute, we have to accept domestic suppliers. That's our license to provide any house domestically with clean fresh water. For commercial ventures, businesses, there is no statutory obligation to provide water for them, but we obviously do what we can. And Michael and his team will be bringing lots more water into the county to help us do that. But there are places in the UK, including some in our region, particularly in Suffolk, where not us, but another water company have put a moratorium on development, in effect blocking non-domestic growth, which obviously stifles economic growth and development of that part of the region because there was not enough water to get to them. So we've got a version of that in some of our hotspot areas where we sort of, as Emily mentioned, we limit the amount of water that business would be using to enable them to connect to our system. But ultimately, we do have that right to say, sorry, we have to prioritise domestic supplies. Hence the need for bigger investment in reservoirs, pipelines, because obviously the water is such a precious resource and I'm running out of it. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So there was a meeting yesterday of the Greater Lincolnshire Mayoral Combined Authority Business and Infrastructure Board. Sadly, the leader from this council didn't attend for some reason. But it was explained in that meeting, I believe, that there were 4 opportunities for growth, economic growth. 4 businesses or industries were not permitted to build in this region because of the lack of water supply. And I wonder, through you, Chair, perhaps we could ask for any data that's pertinent to Boston Borough whether either through our economic growth team or through yourselves, we identify whether economic growth has been prevented due to the lack of capacity for a water supply. I think that's something the committee should explore.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Thank you.
Yeah, we can definitely look into providing that. And I will just say the 4 cities are Cambridge, Peterborough, Milton Keynes and Northampton.
You just quickly come through, and I think that's something maybe we look to add to our work programme. I mean, the whole point of tonight is this very thing of raising issues for actually and looking with greater detail. So I think that's a good point.
So I hear what you said about both of you mentioned climate change, both of you mentioned the increase in population and the development of new properties, which are very relevant issues. And I hear what you said, you're not a statutory consultee on planning applications. However, I wondered, certainly knowing the way planning did run here up until Monday night, I think the previous chairman would have been very open to hearing from Anglian Water and whether, and in fact, as a member of that panel, I would have been very interested to hear whether you anticipated a problem if 100 new houses or 200 new houses were to be built in a specific location. If you were to come along and say, well, actually, you might grant planning permission, but these guys are going to have next to zero water pressure every time they want a bath on a Friday night. So I would urge you to get involved in the planning process, regardless of whether you're a statutory consultee or not.
Yeah, absolutely. That is something that we do. As I say, we comment on any development that is larger than 10 dwellings. And, you know, I've seen many of our planning objections where we are saying, you know, there is not enough water here or there's not enough capacity in the sewage network. So that absolutely is something that we'll keep on doing. Thank you.
Good. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Just to add, so we do submit comments. So we ask planning committees to apply conditions if we think it's an episode. But again, it's up to the planning committee to enforce those conditions because we're not statutory consultees. We can be. It's in Schedule 3 of the Water Management Act. So if that was enacted, then water companies would have that power. But every government has subsequently not pushed that through. So we are still lobbying on that front. But what we are doing on the wastewater side is also insisting now through their planning liaison teams for what's called a SPOC, an SPOC, a sustainable point of connection. So if you are going to connect, and obviously they've got a right to connect to our sewer network, please connect sort of here rather than there, because if you do it here, you can end up not damaging the environment or causing flooding or pollution. So again, we're starting to be much more robust in that feedback through our planning engagements.
Yeah.
So just to add to that, so from a clean water perspective, if there's a new development that's about to be put in somewhere and we have modelled, i.e. our clever people behind computer screens do all the technical detail about flow and pressure demands on our existing network, if we see a deficit there, then it is up to us as the wholesaler to provide a reinforcement main to support that development as well. So we will do that. It's our responsibility, as we said earlier, to provide everybody with wholesome water. So if we can't support it, we'll make sure that we do support it. So.
Well, I mean, I take your points and thank you for that answer, but it seems that whatever recommendations have been made, obviously through your evidence tonight, haven't quite had the impact you wanted them to have. And it sounds like if population growth is a problem and new housing is a problem, and that's something you're experiencing, it sounds like previous planning committees haven't quite listened to whatever representations you've made. And I know the House of Lords, I think just last week, rejected the latest planning legislation that government have put through, I think on 300 separate counts. So perhaps now, is that something you would be able to find out whether you've made representations to the current planning legislation that's working its way through Parliament at the moment to see whether these issues have at least been asked to be addressed in the new bill? I think that would be a useful piece of information if you're able. If you could provide further information, we won't go into it now and I won't hold everyone up, Chair, but you talked about 157 permits being surrendered, which was a 10% value of your total amount. I didn't, perhaps the rest of the committee are far more intelligent than I am, but I didn't quite follow that thread. So if you could add some more colour to that statistic, please, and maybe just an explanatory note of what that is and how that impacts your work. And
Should I
last,
just
sorry.
quickly touch on that now? So each of our storm overflows are permitted by the Environment Agency. So if we surrendered 10% of our permits, we essentially had to close off that storm overflow. So what I'm saying there is we got rid of, ceased operations of 10% of our storm overflows in AMP7. But yeah, if you'd like more information on that, then
Yes,
and
because I would like
locations,
to know
yeah.
what's the impact of that then. Where does
Yeah.
the water go?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it doesn't go into the environment, but it doesn't need to. It goes to our works to be treated and properly discharged as fine effluent. So in effect, we're turning off that emergency service bill because we don't need it anymore. Because we've got our other infrastructure can take that water where it should be going straight to our works to be treated properly.
Okay,
So
thank you.
It's good news they're being surrendered.
Right. Okay, good. All right, good. Thank you. And lastly, well, not lastly, penultimately, thank you for the work you're doing to preserve and enhance our shell fisheries. That, you know, that's a really important industry for this borough. So thank you very much for that. And lastly, I would just mention that next year, the whole country is moving to a new food waste collection. If the area doesn't already have it, everybody's getting a new bin or 2 new bins, smaller ones, to add to the ones they already have. So that might be a sweet spot for you to do your 3P promotion, because if the idea of food waste is in people's mind, and waste in general, green waste, residual waste, etc., it might be a salient time for you to work in harmony with all local governments in your region to get your message out at the same time. All right, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that sounds super. Good idea. Thank you. I'll take that back to the team.
Thank you. Councillor Izard, then Councillor Creswell.
Yes, my original question has already been asked, so just going to fall back on a little bit of information from you, Michael, really, because to give you some background, we had a small sinkhole appear outside Haven High School, which got bigger and bigger, and in the end, it ended up closing half of the carriageway for a fair bit of time, and there seemed to be a lot of debate over who was responsible. So have you got a works team based in Boston, or do they get sent out to Boston when a kind of water leak seems to appear? That's my first question. And secondly, what kind of timescales do you normally put on repair to a carriageway?
Thank you. So all of our technicians, our network technicians within Anglian Water, all operate from their home addresses. So we have some based in Boston, we have some based all over our region. So so they will go out initially and go to said sinkhole, and they will then complete a survey on that. And that survey then is put through our systems, and then it's then sent to our contractors, who will then go out and complete that repair work. So sometimes quite a lot of investigation that goes behind what these things, you know, what the cause of these things are. Do they need impact plans? Do they need CDM packs? And CDM, for those that don't know, is construction design packs, which basically try and encompass all the health and safety aspects of completing that repair safely. So there's risk assessment needs to be completed, and there is timescales on these repairs, and they have to be prioritised. Especially at this current year, we've had a really busy summer. Our repair teams have been out 24/7, and every leak and every hole, it has its prioritisation. So it is down to the technician to decide on what priority that said sinkhole would sit on. And I, without specific details, I wouldn't be able to tell you, you know, as to how that one was handled as such. But it would have been prioritised in the best way it could be, based on the workload that we currently have and sitting on. So.
Okay, I mean, you answered my question as whether you've got location teams in Boston that can respond quickly. Yes, it took 10 to 12 weeks, and obviously being in a road near to a school caused more inconvenience in that way. And as you say, it started off a small little hole and then become quite a big hole.
I'd be keen to know if it was the clean water side or the wastewater side. Obviously, I operate clean water. I'll be keen to know some more details on that specific job, if you could share those one way or another.
It might also have needed to have highways involvement if it's a road. So if we had to close a road, obviously sort of 3 months notice sometimes for a license to close a road. So yeah, I mean, and if it wasn't causing a a pollution or an issue, then that's something we may have been a factor. We can look into it though.
Yeah.
Councillor Creswell, then Councillor Richard Austin.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I've got a couple of points. Your Just Bin It campaign, I'm really interested in that. And I think it's fantastic, and I think it's really, really useful. We obviously live in a town where we've got a multitude of languages spoken. I just wondered how widely you were going to be translating that campaign into different languages so that we could effectively, you obviously asked us to share it in our community, so we can effectively, pass that on to our residents to educate them.
Yeah, I can certainly take it back to our comms team and see if we could share those comms in other languages. Do you know if that's something you've done before?
We have. It'd be useful to know which languages you'd like us to do it in. If we could, that be good. I noticed obviously that even on your reception, there's many flags, many nations on your entrance. So yeah, we can look into that. We have translated it. We do online translation, but we can do printed as well.
Yeah. So if you could provide the languages to us, then we can definitely look into that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. We can get that data for you. It's pretty easily available of what percentage we've got. If we could have leaflets, that would be really useful as well. So we can put them in some of our local doctors' surgeries and obviously within the parishes. That would be brilliant. My next question, if I may, is about your infrastructure. I'm really interested in this. Obviously, you've touched on it. You've said we're a very rural area. We have got farmers. We've got many of our parishes represented around this table. Your pipeline and your infrastructure, your pipeline corridors are going to go directly through a lot of our local significant farmers' fields. They're going to go through a lot of our parishes who are going to come under a lot of pressure when this corridor is going through. I want to know a couple of things. How closely are you working with the national grid? Because obviously these same farmers, these same areas, these same parishes are being directly affected by the pylons. The worst thing in the world is going to be you're going to have all the upheaval of you going through these farms, across these roads. Both the pylons and the pipeline corridor goes right exactly past Hubbart's Bridge, which we've already touched on as being an absolute hotspot. So we're now going to have these two major developments going just yards up the road from that to add another burden to it. I just want to know how closely you work with these other parties, please.
I mean, we do. I don't know the details, but we are aware of other infrastructure that's going on. In fact, even within Anglian Water, sometimes Michael might be laying a new water main, and then we'll come along next week and put a new sewer in. So we absolutely understand and appreciate the disruption that can be, sort of consolidated on many a farmer or landowner. But obviously, some of our plans aren't quite aligned. Obviously, we can't sort of work that closely with other big infrastructure providers on their timescales compared to ours. But certainly, just to give you some reassurance, we have a landowner engagement team in Anglian Water. We have a compensation package, obviously, as well, that we deal with any land loss. And the easement point, yeah, you're right. We have to have easements on certain pipe corridors to allow us access to maintain and repair pipes. But we have a very robust team to make sure that the landowners are treated properly and dealt with accordingly, as we have with the reservoir as well. It's exactly the same process. But yeah, I mean, we can find out what else we know about other big infrastructure. I know the pylons are quite a contentious issue in the county, so we'll look into that and get back to you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think that'll be reassuring for some of the councillors here who obviously represent some of the parishes that will be affected. Thank you.
Did you just have a second point, or was that? Okay, thank you. So Councillor Richard Austin, but then we need to move on.
Thank you. I have two questions, Mr. Chairman. The first one is about, there is a lot of concern about the state of children's teeth, and fluoridation has always been held up as a very good question to use in this case. Where are we with fluoridation at the moment, and is there any chance that we can get our children's teeth improved in this area with it?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So Anglian Water do put fluoride in water supply, but only on the request of the council. So which they get advice from Health England. So we don't put it in unless we're told to, in effect. So it's a council-driven local authority decision to fluoride the water.
The other question relates to the risks involved with water companies. We're all very aware of what's happened to Thames Water and the terrible situation it's in, causing grievance to not only the residents of Thames Water, but also to the government. Where is Anglian Water in the hierarchy of water companies as far as financial stability is concerned?
Yeah, well, I mean, not to be disingenuous, but we're not Thames Water, as you'll be pleased to know. We've got a very strong backing from our shareholders. As Emily mentioned earlier, they're investing lots more money directly into the company, and our investors have been with us for a long time, like decades. They're pension funds. They're not like fast track sort of play the stock market type investors. They're people that want to invest in long term and get steady returns. So our position, we can be assured we're quite stable. We are a stable water company, attracting good investment still, and shareholders that are happy to stay with us. Obviously, it doesn't come without challenges, because obviously there are lots of demands and perhaps more investment, as you heard, £11 billion we're going to spend the next 5 years. But that's, again, that shows the level of intent that our investors have in trying to sort of progress environmental protection, security of supply, and protecting that flourishing environment. So they're in it for the long haul. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I genuinely thank you? I think tonight's been really interesting. I think there's some issues now that we as a committee need to think about. Oh, sorry, Councillor Creswell.
Sorry, yeah, just to add to that, thinking about as a committee that we add to, can we add to the work programme about talking about a regional...
When we come to the work programme.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think there have been several issues here, the planning issue and various other bits and pieces, where we now need to look at our work programme and start looking at in more detail. The whole point tonight was more to get that sort of the first seed of that, and I'm certain if need, you'll be more than happy to come back to us again. I think there could well be an argument for this coming back to a meeting of all councillors, in honesty, but I think that'd be really useful. There's been great information, and thank you very much for coming, but we do have quite a bit to cover on the agenda yet, so one of our colleagues will see you out, but generally thanks for coming. And we'll have a quick 2-minute comfort break if people want it, and then we'll get on with the rest of the agenda. Thank you. Thank you. No, that's seriously. So, ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to item 3 on the agenda, the Crime and Disorder Report. Our third item is pages 57, starts on page 57 of the agenda, and presented by Peter Hunt. Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. It is our annual crime and disorder report, which is a statutory requirement that we bring it to scrutiny each year. This is a little bit later than we would normally do. We normally try to do this in June, July time, but to fit in with the cycle of the other council areas as well, that we've pushed it back to after the summer recess. But thank you for that. You may have noticed that where we normally come as a threesome, the inspector, myself, and Andrew as the CCTV manager. We've got a couple more members here today. We like safety in numbers, so we've all come together. And I'd like to introduce these colleagues. We have had a service review, or Emily in her area has had a service review recently, where previously up to August 1st, I was the community safety manager for Boston and East Lindsey. My colleague here, Dee, was the community safety officer manager for South Holland. Our roles have now changed. I am, as it says on my title, I am the Safer Communities Manager for Operations. So I now work across South Holland, Boston and East Lindsey. My element is the operationals area is antisocial behaviour and CCTV, so the enforcement side of it. Dee does the other half of what previously we used to do on our own, and that's Safer Communities Manager for Partnership Delivery. So community safety partnership, the domestic abuse officers and anything related to that sort of side of it, which is not operation, and Dee will look after that. We've also seen a change. We are no longer now called community safety, we are safer communities, and we come under the remit now with private sector housing of safer communities. And Mr. John Challen is there. He is now our group manager. So he's a group manager for private sector housing and the safer communities element. John also is our chair of our local community safety partnership. The community safety partnership covers Boston, East Lindsey and South Holland, and John is the chair of that group. Andrew, unfortunately, is sat behind us tonight, sort of thing, but you obviously know Andrew. Andrew is our CCTV manager. Obviously, Andrew will be able to answer any CCTV questions related you've got to the report. And of course, I don't need to introduce them, but it'd be rude if I didn't. Of course, my friend and colleague, Inspector Ian Cotton, is here to represent obviously Lincolnshire, but also when it comes to the enforcement reports that we do, antisocial behaviour, noxious odours, even CCTV and so on, PSPO, we do it as a partnership. Lincolnshire Police and the Council work in partnership. We do our letters jointly, we do our cases jointly, and we support and help each other. Is one of our closest colleagues and friends and agencies. So of course I drag him to everything I come to from here, so he can answer the questions that I don't want to. And I'd like to welcome and thank you, Inspector Cotton, for attendance tonight. I am going to take it as members have read the report, so I am just going to give a very brief summary of the 100-odd pages of the report, and I will not apologise for that. I think it's important, and we do when we have one scrutiny committee, that you get a real flavour and insight of the work that our safer communities, previously community safety, do. And for a small team, as you can see by the report, I think we do a lot. We do a lot of fingers in a lot of pies. We're involved in a lot of areas, do a lot of work, and it just gives you an idea and the flavour of that work. So I will highlight through the content sort of thing again very briefly, where you will find the pages and the appendices. I will not go into detail in relation to what you've got, but at the end, myself and my colleagues will be more than happy to answer any questions you've got in relation to the report. So for the purpose of the report, as I said, the annual report provides elected members with a comprehensive update on community safety activity across Boston Borough. This is during the financial year of 2024-2025, so it ended on March the 31st this year. It outlines strategic developments, operational enforcement, partnership working and future priorities under the statutory duties of the Community Safety Partnership. And the key contents from the report and the appendices, you will see strategic overview that can be seen on page 58 and 59, but also Appendix 1 and Appendix 2. And this explains the roles of the South and East Lincolnshire Community Safety Partnership. Also, we come under the umbrella arm of the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership, which is the County Community Safety Partnership. That's called the SLP, Safer Lincolnshire Partnership. And again, it will include what our statutory responsibilities are that come under the Crime and Disorder Act 1998. You will also see some local delivery. It's important what we do for our area for 2024-5 financial year. And again, that can be found on page 59, section 2.6.1 to page 60, section 2.6.6. And they will talk in particular about the operation plotting initiatives, including our community rangers, which was funded by the Serious Violence Fund this year, the community engagement officer, the environmental improvements and digital information boards, and some of the expansions on CCTV, and that highlights some of that work from there. Page 60, section 2.8, in particularly mentions and discusses about hotspot policing, Home Office funded patrols by the police in Boston Town Centre with some measurable outputs and community feedback. And obviously, Inspector Cotton can obviously talk about that in any more detail if members have any questions. Annual campaigns that we've supported during that financial year can be seen on page 61, section 2.9, and we've just given a flavour of some of those: the Antisocial Behaviour Awareness Week, Hate Crime Awareness Week, Scams Awareness Week, and the White Ribbon Day. Dee, in particular, in one of her areas, she manages the domestic abuse officers, which is external funded across the partnership. So we've got a section there on the domestic abuse support that we do. That can be found on page 61, section 2.10. And that will touch on the training, outreach and awareness led by the domestic abuse officers across the partnership. The key bit for obviously our report is the figures that we do in relation to our antisocial behaviour enforcement. So the enforcement and surveillance elements can be seen on page 61, section 3, and in particular appendix 3 on your file. And that will show the ASB enforcement, the incremental approach we do for that, our PSPO alcohol restrictions, so the dealing with alcohol in the town centre, and a new procedure that we've had now for a couple of years, the noxious sodas procedures, and the enforcement from there, and you'll see the figures related to that. CCTV performance can be found on page 61 at section 4 and appendix 4, and as normal in detail, a very detailed and colourful report from Andrew highlighting the work of CCTV and his teams and important work that they do, not just in Boston but across the partnership. And again, you will be able to see the strategic figures for arrests, incidents and evidence package that we've had involvement in created. So it's not all the police ones. Obviously, they're part of it. It's the ones that we've had our active involvement and led and dealt with from there. And also, there has been some. We have to bring the CCTV policy to scrutiny every year. Just highlight any amendments and any changes from that, and that can be found at Appendix 6. And we've done some slight amendments. Some very minor ones, just adding the new cameras in from there and the new business work, but we've highlighted those in blue on that report. And again, myself, Andrew, will be able to answer any questions that you may have in relation to the CCTV policy. Strategic planning for 2025-2028, so the new community safety partnership plan that we've got for 3-year plan, which commenced in April this year, that can be found on page 62 and sections 5 and appendix 6. We'll highlight those in details. It gives an introduction to the new Safer Lincolnshire Community Safety Partnership and SLP strategies, which is now adopting a project-based approach. Unfortunately, we do not have a member of the Lincolnshire Safer Lincolnshire Partnership here today. So if there is any particular questions that members have about the county-wide model and their approach and strategies, we'll have to take those on board and come back with written answers in relation to those there. So our recommendations to members will be to note the contents of the report as evidence of our strategic compliance and partnership activity, to advise on any future areas of focus for inclusion in the next reports, and to something in line with local priorities and concerns. We've had no questions in advance, but myself and colleagues joining me this evening are happy to answer any questions members may have. But where we can't answer them, we will come back to where we can with a written response. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you, Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Peter. Last time we had a briefing and you spoke of the noxious odours thing. It was a trial, so it's good now to see that it seems to be part of the policy and the procedures. Are you confident that it will go from strength to strength?
Thank you for the question. And yes, I briefed last time because we was the pilot of that trial for Lincolnshire, and obviously it was from the success of the pilot that actually got carried out and done from Lincolnshire wide, but not just Lincolnshire wide. Now we've had a number of other forces that's contacted myself and Ian and colleagues to basically brief in. They want to put them into their areas because it's one of the first really in relation to dealing with noxious odours and the effect it has on from there. And as you can see from the stats in the report from there, it has gone from strength to strength. And I would probably say now it matches probably 50% of reports that we get, not just about antisocial behaviour, it's that noxious odours elements or it. So the incremental approach that we deal with it with the advice, the warnings, the support, the outreach work that we do on for that sort of thing. But then importantly, they've not taken any advice, they've not taken the warning, it then goes for that statutory community notices before we get to court stage. And I'm pleased to say, as you would like with an incremental approach, we've not had to take anyone to court yet from this. So it shows that initial advice, maybe that second warning where, you know, one of Ian's team will go around with one of my officers, will go around and hand serving that warning letter, trying to say, look, we've advised you, you've now done that, that pretty much nips it in the bud. And there are not many go through to that final stage, and none at this stage in that first year has gone to court. I think that's a success in itself.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Izard.
Thank you, Chair. Can I take you to page 102, which is the incident category breakdown, the live incident category breakdown? Just for information, really, on some of the figures produced.
Yeah, you may. I might have to bring my colleague in, Andrew, to help this, but more than happy for answer those questions where we can.
That's fine. The first one, right at the bottom, or the second from bottom, is violence and sexual, which is slightly increased this year. But is there a way you can divide those figures between the two? Because unfortunately, there seems to be a feeling that there is a high sexual assault in Boston town. I was wondering whether those two figures could be separated, or would they be classed as one under the police?
They're not under the police, it's under the records that we hold and put on our CCTV system, but I will pass it over to Andrew because he'd be far better at answering this question than me.
Okay.
Cheers. Yeah, I mean, how we record them, what we did a few years ago was align our incident categories the same as the police public records that they put out. So that's why they're grouped together, because that's how it comes out on the police stats that you'll see on various websites. We don't, if we record an incident on our systems, we don't record anything separately other than that. So if we were to divide it up further, we'd need to change some of the way we record things in the future. So it's something we could do, but I'd probably suggest that maybe police records probably more accurate record of what's going on in the area really than CCTV records. So.
Yeah, thanks for that, Andrew. It's just that obviously the perception seems to be high in Boston amongst especially our young ladies, and I just wanted to know more of a breakdown to see whether there is an issue or a problem. The other one I noticed, traffic offences. Are we keeping better check on our roads now, or have we just got more bad drivers?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. It obviously looks higher. It may just be an anomaly that we're recording more of them, but yeah, I'll hand it over to Ian.
Recently, in the priority setting, in the last 6 months, we have had priorities around nuisance vehicles. So we'll be deliberately looking for evidence of that and asking CCTV to monitor certain areas and certain incidents flagged for us. I would imagine that's some of that.
That's the increase. And shoplifting's basically stayed roughly the same. The criminal damage and arson is another one that seems to have doubled. Is that, I know I spoke to you before about the number of broken windows that the town centre seems to receive on a regular basis, including churches, which had 2 windows broken for no apparent reason. Again, could that be broken down a little bit better for us so that we can have a better understanding of what the actual criminal damage is?
If I can take that away, speak to Andrew about it and see how we can probably expand on this report to, obviously we've got the detail behind every single one of those incidents. Obviously we can't particularly go into that incident detail, but it might assist if we can then do any further breakdown for next year. We'll probably see if we can expand and look at that from there. So but that particular incident that you mentioned about churches with that sort of thing, through CCTV, doing a review of the cameras, then highlighting to the police officer who was investigating the case. I believe arrest was made for that case. So it's one good example of our joint partnership working.
I think there's also there's credence in saying that these are the incidents where we will request something from CCTV. It doesn't necessarily equate to a crime in that case. It's actually partly negating some crimes as well. So the crime figures will actually be different to these, but we have had some increases in criminal damage, and I'm not going to hide away from that when we talk about those sorts of things.
Yeah, and as we know, sometimes they're empty shops, and of course the reporting of empty shops is going to be much more reduced than, say, Superdrug that suffered burglaries, etc. Well, thanks, gentlemen, for that. As I say, it would be good if, I suppose, for us, that we have a little bit clearer on the actual aspects of it. But that's all. Great report.
I think my boss wants to come in, so I'm not going to argue with him. I'll bring him in now for you.
Councillor Pierpoint, then Councillor Richard Austin. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Just in relation to arson, just to give you an update that we are aware of the increase in figures. That those figures have continued the first 2 quarters of this year. So we are asking the colleagues from Fire and Rescue to attend not the next Community Safety Partnership, because that's next week, but the February meeting in order to have a discussion about the Fire Stoppers campaign and what we can do as partners to try and support that across, well, certainly for the Boston area, but across the South East Links area as well. So just to give some assurance that part of the role of our Community Safety Partnership is to try and act swiftly, locally for emerging issues, as opposed to having to wait for something to come strategically from a county group. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pierpoint, then Councillor Richard Austin.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Peter. I'm trying to understand where your operations start and finish, and where the police start and finish on this, because I'm not quite sure. They seem to run into each other, and I'm not really understand how it all works. I've got a very clear understanding of this, because things like the CCTV cameras, I'm okay with that because that's based here and it's all here. But when you're talking about crime and you're talking about antisocial behaviour and all the other things, to me that's a police matter, and I'm trying to work out how the two blend into each other, and where you start and finish and where they start and carry on. I can't get my head around it.
I'm happy to start that, and probably Ian will tell me different, but I'm quite clear on that. Anything that's criminal, absolutely, it's a police matter, and they've got the remit to deal with that. We can't deal with that unless it's obviously civil and matters that we do, the littering sort of thing and stuff like that. With antisocial behaviour, again, it's that fine line of, does it go into that criminality, or is it basically comes into that lower level stuff? We're absolutely working partnership with that antisocial behaviour. What I don't want is, I don't want police to be dealing with antisocial behaviour and then we're not aware about it and not doing it, and we're then coming and doing the same. So which is why we do it for them. And so once we get referral for antisocial behaviour, it then goes for that incremental approach. We'll then go through either an injunction or community protection notice, or if it gets to a level where there's then that criminality comes in once on there, then obviously our police colleagues will take over from there. So as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to antisocial behaviour, it's a joint effort. We would lead and support with the incremental approach and the enforcement letters and from there sort of thing. but then it's a case by case basis. So they will contact us about particular issues. We've got that luxury now for this year of having the community safety officers, which has been funded through the Boston Town Board. They can help with the high vis patrolling and dealing with stuff from there. Obviously, the antisocial behaviour will work with the neighbourhood policing team to address any individual, any issue that comes out. I'm quite happy, and I hope you get that reassurance that as long as we are aware of where the land lies and what's we go, you can rely on us to do it. But I'm pleased you asked that question.
Well, I'm not querying anything. I'm not suggesting you're not doing a good job or anything. I'm just trying to understand how the two blend into each other and where one starts and one finishes. You know, and you know, I just couldn't get my head around it. But now you explained it, I've got a clearer picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richard Austin.
A point that Councillor Pierpoint raised earlier in the evening was about vehicles without insurance. I mean, this is to my mind, a very serious issue. Now, is there any indication this is an increasing problem, or is it well under control?
Well, those are two separate questions. Is it an increasing problem? We're catching more motorists than ever without insurance, and some estimates say that there's 1 in 10 cars on the road that don't have insurance. What we would like, obviously, is a much stronger roads traffic division to go out and catch those people in the act and take those cars off the road. What I can assure the council is that my team are very proactive in that, some more than others, but some are extremely proactive in taking cars away from people who don't have insurance. And we've taken many away this year. And if you want the figures, I'll get them for you.
Councillor Martin.
I just would like to say it's a good report. It's a great report. And I've seen quite a lot of presence from the police lately. There's been a lot of police presence, and a few people come up to me, quite funny, really. They said, "There's 2 policemen walking around on foot through town." I see them, and I was like that, and everybody else has did. They've been noticed, and I can assure you, it does make people feel more, safer. But it's nice to see. There's been so many. Everywhere I go, there's a police car. There's police, and it's really good to see. So thank you for that, and thank you for this report. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Peter and your team, a really good report. So can you take our thanks back to all your colleagues, because it struck, I've been now on the council on and off for quite a while, and it does seem we've had some really great initiatives. Your team worked really hard, and I suppose this is one of these sort of really weird questions. Do you think it's getting easier, or is it getting harder?
I don't want to do myself out of a job, councillor, so I'm not going to say it's ever gets easier. What I would say is, and again, it's sat next to me, and I don't mind saying throughout, I would not be able to, my teams and CC would not be able to do our job if we didn't have that really close professional working relationship that we've got with the police. And I would hope to say, and I'm sure we would agree, that we benefit from them myself and what we can do from there. Legislation does help. There is certain frustrating legislation we see that we would like more of than got from there, and I'm sure we'd much prefer to have a lot more officers on the ground and a lot more funding to be able to do more initiatives. We do what we can, and I think what we do, I think, and absolutely you've said tonight, I think you've seen we may be small, but I think we do have an effect, and I'm hoping the residents and also have that same opinion.
In my humble opinion, you work miracles in truth. So, as I say, genuinely, you take back our thanks, because you do make a difference to the people's lives in the town and the borough. So it's really good job, and it's a really good report as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you. And so, change of teams. Oh, just to go back. So we note the contents of the report. Members consider areas of focus which you've done. They will appear in the minutes, and obviously we've asked some areas where we want some greater details next year if possible. But thank you very much. Okay, so now we'll get to item 4 on the agenda, South and East Lincolnshire Council's Partnership Safeguarding Policy, which actually isn't easy to say.
It's definitely not, is it, Chair? Thank you very much.
Yeah,
And,
so next item of business is item 4. It starts on page 147.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, councillors. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Dave Postle. I'm Service Manager for Wellbeing Links, which is a county council funded service that I provide on behalf of the council, the district councils in Lincolnshire. That's my main role, but I'm here tonight as my secondary, under my secondary role, which is the Deputy Strategic Lead for Safeguarding for the council partnership. Now, what I've brought this evening is to ask you to consider a new safeguarding policy that we've created. Following the creation of the council partnership, it was decided that all 3 councils having a separate safeguarding policy wasn't the best, so we've combined it into a single policy. There are no major changes in the contents of the policy. All of the district councils have the same statutory responsibility, so it just made sense to bring it all together in a single policy. For those of you that may not be aware, County Council have the main safeguarding duty in as the top tier authority, and that's more linked around their adult social care function and their children's services function. For the district councils, it's more about making or giving officers and yourselves as councillors awareness on what you should do should you have a safeguarding concern, and that's what we've covered in the policy. The policy will be updated with a light touch update, taking account of any changes in officers, any up and coming case law that we need to have regard to. We'll do that annually, but every 3 years we will do a full review of the safeguarding policy, and it will come back through the governance process. Like I've said, it is for all of the 3 councils, so the same policy is going through the governance process of all 3 councils, and will do in 3 years' time. So I'm not going to run through line by line for the policy, so I would open it up to questions. If anybody's got any questions about the contents of the policy or the report, and feel free to ask the questions.
Yes, thank you. So are there any questions? Can I just say though how I think the report reads really well. I mean, I think the policy is clear and understandable. So, and I think that's the main thing. If people can understand it, then hopefully they'll be able to implement it. So, Councillor Izard.
I'm doing quite a bit of talking tonight, aren't I? Page 9. Okay, so the training and development side, and of course the elected members. Things change quite rapidly, don't they, in safeguarding as far as modern technology and the effects. Yeah, I sit on a school, Park Academy, and some of the stories I hear are quite horrific, really, for that age group. So do you intend doing training development and updating it to new things and different things in that sense? I know we don't have too close a connection, but we do work with our residents, and sometimes we will possibly come across safeguarding issues or are informed of safeguarding issues.
Yeah, well, the training, what we currently do with regards to safeguarding training is we sign up on use County Council's 6-year annual programme for e-learning. County Council are in the process of changing that yet again, and I don't think any of us have actually got through to the final of the 6 years because it gets updated and changed. The new approach will be everybody, officers, councillors, will do or be expected to do a basic level of safeguarding training, and then individual things as something comes up in case law or changes in practice, then we will create training specifically for that. Normally after elections we hold safeguarding training or safeguarding awareness sessions for councillors, and I did it I think it was last year through all the councils, but we'll also be looking at actually setting up bespoke face-to-face and online training sessions to cover specific topics. So if any councillors do have any specific topics that you'd like us to cover, please let me know and I'll get those set up for you.
Councillor Pierpoint.
Hi, David. As Chairman of Audit and Governance, excuse me, I don't smoke. As Chairman of Audit and Governance, I'm always keen to know about record keeping. And do you have a system where you check up on records to make sure they're kept up to date and they're thorough? Because when you get incidents and then something crops up, you tend to find that the records aren't up to date or there's a problem, but they've not been kept up to date. So can you reassure us that you've got a system in place where you're keeping checks on these records to make sure they are up to date?
Yeah, I definitely can, Councillor. So we've actually, with the joining of the three councils, we've been able to recruit a safeguarding officer who does the admin side of the safeguarding processes for all of the three councils, and that officer has robust record keeping in place for safeguarding concerns that come to the three councils. What we also do is we link in with County Council, because as the top tier authority, any actual safeguarding concerns or any safeguarding cases go to them and they keep a separate record as well. So it is very robust.
Thank you. No, there's no other question. Oh, no other questions. David, thank you. Again, I think the policy is clear. And if it's clear, it's understandable and will be implemented. So the recommendation is that we recommend this policy to Cabinet. I'm happy to propose that. Thank you. Agreed? Yeah, thank you for your time on that. Thank you. Yeah. So which brings us in a moment to item 5. Sorry, we've got a little technical issue. So we're being joined by Brendan Arnold via our section 151 officer by Teams, and we're just implementing the technology which we've not got. So is he above me though? Yeah, they can see. That's fine. I'm not. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So moving on. This is now the budget preparation 26-27 approach and process. So this is our 5th item of business, and it starts on page 177 of the agenda. And we're joined by Brendan Arnold, our interim director of finance, section 151 officer. Evening, Brendan.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, members. Can I just check that you can all hear me sufficiently?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. My apologies for not being able to be with you in person tonight. I've had to travel to the other side of the country, so I'm addressing you from a hotel room, and I am sorry about that. The second thing is that some members will have seen this report at least once before and possibly even twice. So my apologies for that also. The reason the report is here, because it has been before all the audit and governance committees in the 3 council partnership, and I think also all now, with the exception of this committee, of the scrutiny committees that that we have, as well as numerous other management briefings. And the report was produced earlier in the summer to set out a new methodology for the preparation of the 26-27 budget. And the reason for that is, when I arrived here as your section 151 officer early in March of 2025, when I was talking to people and listening to what they had to say about budget preparation, there were a number of common themes, Chair. And the principal one, I think, which was shared by Cabinet members, by scrutiny members, by members of the Audit and Governance Committee, by members of SLT and managers serving the process, as well as colleagues in democratic services, was that there was very little time between the finance settlement arriving in late December and the budgets having to be researched, proposals put forward, committee reports prepared, fed through the governance system, and finally presented to budget councils in late February or early March. And there was a kind of a common plea for more time, and so I set out with the agreement of the chief executive and the senior team to design a process that would afford that extra time and allow decisions to be made with better quality evidence, a more considered process with better opportunities for discussion, and actually stronger consideration of budget proposals by the scrutiny function. So the report that you have before you this evening, which I won't go through because I know you'll all have read at least some of it and probably all of it, sets out the process that we've been using. And so we started in late May, Chair, and in June we asked the services in the organisation to begin preparing their estimates of the cost pressures they would face in budget year 26-27. In July, we asked them to prepare cost reduction proposals, which could be considered through the autumn in the time before the finance settlement arrived. In August, we designed and operated a star chamber process to both challenge some of the assumptions that were being made in services for additional pressures, but also to support them in terms of developing proposals for cost reduction. And those star chambers had cabinet members involved in them as well, and sometimes other portfolio holders too. And so all of that has now happened, and we're in the process now, having worked quite significantly through September, to be able to begin the process of presenting options to the council in order to consider how it might balance its budget for next year and the years following. There are, however, a number of uncertainties, and chief among those is the government's arrangements for advising the settlement and to understand what its policy steer is, and equally the date of the finance settlement and what it might contain. So earlier in the year, we were told that the autumn budget would be in October. It's now been moved to late November, which is very late indeed. We were told by the outgoing Minister for Local Government, Jim McMahon, that the finance settlement would be advised to local authorities in late November, which surprised a number of us because that would be a first. And sure enough, that's now moved back to just before Christmas. So there are benefits and disbenefits of that. It gives councils more time to think and consider, which is a good thing. But equally, the final numbers that councils will be set to live within will not be advised just before the Christmas break. And so there will be the usual mad rush on the part of colleagues in finance and in democratic services to get all the papers put together to feed through the very important government systems that all three councils in the partnership use, and including Boston. So that's now all set to move forward. But the greatest uncertainty, Chair, is the government's intention in terms of what is called fair funding. Now, some of you who have been in the local government game a while will recognise the term fair funding. You probably won't have a very clear view as to what it means. That's because the government's been talking about it in the context of different policy initiatives for about 15 years and hasn't really implemented it as it was originally intended. And so as we sit here today, I don't think we're entirely clear whether all of the items that were in the government's recent consultation entitled Fair Funding, which is available on MHCLG's website, should any member be keen to read it. It's about 20 pages or something like that, as I recall. Whether all of that will be implemented or not. And if it is, then it does have quite a negative effect on the revenue support grant, the core funding afforded to most district councils. So That being so, we are, in terms of preparing our figure work to support the three councils in terms of those budget processes, we're assuming the government does implement everything that is consulted on, and trying to take a prudent view, which is towards the worst case end of the possible financial envelope. So all of that is the background to the budget. And the reason that I'm here before you this evening, Chair, is that I wanted to make sure that all the scrutiny committees were aware of the budget scrutiny events that were being scheduled for early January. So the process will run something like this. So the settlement will arrive in late December, probably just before Christmas. As is usual, and as this happens in all councils up and down the land, there will have been consideration at officer level and in informal discussions around what the options will be to meet any shortfall that may arise. And so Cabinet will decide just before Christmas what it wants to include in its proposals, and those proposals without delay will be then put into papers and brought before a budget scrutiny which has been scheduled in the first half of January. I don't, I'm afraid, know what the date is in Boston, but my colleagues in Democratic Services probably do, and the date has been inserted into the municipal calendar, so it's there. There is, however, still some opportunity to consider how the event happens and as to its character. And in my mind, this operates best when it's a 4 or 5 hour session. I think all scrutiny members should be there, and the way the process will work is that portfolio holders will present their budget proposals to the budget scrutiny meeting, supported by their chief officers, and scrutiny members will have the opportunity to ask questions of those portfolio holders and to obtain answers on any point they may wish to inquire over. And so there will be a structured agenda that goes through all the aspects of the budget, and that includes the corporate aspects, also the service aspects. So each of the directorates in the council will appear with their relevant officers, who you all know, obviously know and love, and we will do our very best to make sure that we provide to the scrutiny meeting as detailed answers as we possibly can to the questions that are raised, and we would hope that most of those can be answered on the day. If not, as is usual in the world we live in, we will provide written responses as soon as we can. And at the end of that session, oh, and by the way, my proposal is that members of Audit and Governance Committee are also invited into that space, as this is a kind of changeover year from one process to another. So to have maximum exposure and inclusion, we're suggesting that Audit and Governance Committee members are also invited to that. That will be a matter for the relevant chairs to consider, Chair. And after that, then we would hope that the scrutiny meeting will prepare recommendations on what they've heard, and a formal report will be prepared for the next meeting of Cabinet that considers those budget proposals, and Cabinet will be asked to adopt those scrutiny recommendations into the budget that is being put forward to full council. Now, my experience in many authorities has been, in many cases, cabinets absolutely want to accept as many of those as they can. So I think, you know, the scrutiny meeting should be very confident in putting forward proposals and give Cabinet some work to do in consideration of those. And hopefully then, if as many as possible of those scrutiny recommendations can be adopted by Cabinet in forming and framing its final proposals for Budget Council, that should, I think, demonstrate that the whole process of democracy and budget setting and embracing as much as the council can of those proposals and seeing its the points that it's not happy with being dealt with should be a very helpful thing in terms of getting support for the budget and everyone feeling that actually that's something that they've had a part in, has touched them and they've been able to influence it. And that's where we would want to end, so that Budget Council, I think it's late February here, but it might be early March, we have a much more satisfactory treatment and agreement of the budget and the council tax than perhaps we might otherwise have done had all that not been able to take place. So, Chair, I'll rest there, but very happy to take questions from members of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the data report. I'm speaking personally as chair. There's been some interesting work by the Institute of Public Scrutiny. They've changed their name slightly. I mean, I'm more than happy for that meeting to be a joint meeting with Audit and Governance. In other words, that it's a formal joint meeting of both committees. I think that'll be the sensible way forward. But do any members have any questions? Councillor Izzard?
Good evening, Brendan, and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Just one point. I mean, you kind of mentioned having a 5 to 6 hour session to go through the different portfolio budgets for the next year. Maybe that might become too long. Would you think about having it over a two-day session, dividing our cabinet, which is quite large, into 2 sections, so that people can concentrate clearly on it rather than trying to do it all in one go?
I think that's an interesting idea, Councillor, and indeed I have seen that operated elsewhere, and I think it can at one level work very well because certainly there's more time. However, when it happened last time in another authority, I think all involved, both members and officers, felt that was exhausting actually to have 2 sessions. And in this particular occasion, I think there was a gap between them. It was felt that was actually really hard work. And although no one is afraid of hard work, there was a sense that maybe that was a step too far. I mean, I think it depends very much on what you as an audit, as a scrutiny committee would like to do, and maybe there's a compromise. Maybe it's a 4-hour job in the evening, starting perhaps a little bit earlier than usual, so maybe 5 o'clock. I don't know, but all of this can be discussed, and and I'm sure, Chair, you'll be consulting your committee on how that should look, and informal conversations can be had to try and build something that works for all stakeholders as get a bit nearer the time.
Thank you. Councillor Pierpoint.
Thank you. Brendan, first of all, I do like the way you've approached this. Obviously, we spoke when you first started here about sort of approach and the process, and it's structured and it's a lot more clearer and more defined than we were in the past. So thank you for that. I'm just curious about this star chamber thing here, talking about unrealistic savings. Do I take it that the portfolio holders have spent some time with the various ADs going through the budgets and looking at ways to save money? Has that happened yet, or is it about to happen, or where do we stand on that?
Yes, the Star Chamber process that's referred to there is perhaps a semi-formal aspect of that process, but I'm quite confident that that portfolio holders have received briefings from their service managers on what might be possible and what might not be possible. So I think you would expect that to be happening. That happens throughout the local government sector throughout the summer, and it's good that the 3 councils in the partnership, including Boston, are in that space. But I think at this point, no views have been formed. So that is now the next phase, really, of moving through October and November to try and get some sort of consistent view together of what Cabinet, whose responsibility it is to gather their thoughts on that, understand what they want to achieve and so forth. And the key issue then is taking that on swiftly to have that significant discussion and challenge at the budget scrutiny meeting, which is why I said 5 to 6 hours, because I think if you really wanted to give this, a really good going through, I think you might well decide that that's the amount of time that you need. And I think you can have as much time as you want. I don't think there's any view about it has to be done in an hour and a half. Clearly not. I don't think there's a view, oh, well, we need 2 days, but it needs to be a really thorough going over. That's good governance. It breeds good decision making. And I think it will establish the council's reputation as being, on the stronger side of scrutiny processes as they operate up and down the land at that time of year.
Yeah, I don't have a problem about the 5 or 6 hours, as long as you get a nice dinner break in between. Otherwise, my head will be frazzled and I still wonder where they're coming and going. But no, I think it's a good idea, and I'm looking forward to the occasion. And I will work with the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny as Audit and Governance Chair. I think we ought to work together collaboratively on this project.
Yeah, I'm more than happy.
Thank you.
Thank you. So no other questions? Thank you for this. I think it's actually a much more open approach we've had now. I know I'm understanding the process more than I have done in the past, so this is good. So thank you for this, and then obviously we'll work together to work out the next steps. So we've been asked to note the comments on this report. Are we happy this is noted? Thank you. So we now move on to item 5. There are item 6, the Local Council Tax Support Scheme 2026-27. Before we start this, can I say I'm slightly surprised that it's been brought to this committee at this stage of the process. I must admit, when I saw it on our work agenda, I thought we were going to be looking at the actual questions that were going to be asked in the consultation. But as I understand it, this has already been to Cabinet, who have agreed the questions, and the consultation has actually started. So I think at this stage, I can't see what positive things we can add to the discussion. And my feeling is that this should come back to us as a committee when we actually get the results from the consultation. I mean,
Chair,
so I'm not
can
too
I
sure what we can say.
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to offer to explain our thinking, if that would be helpful. I didn't mean to interrupt you. My apologies.
No, carry on.
Thank you. So I agree entirely with your latter point. And so when the consultation has taken place, I would see those, that coming back to be within the orbit of the budget scrutiny meeting that we have just discussed. The reason this report is here is that it has been to Cabinet for a particular reason. The Council Tax Support Scheme needs to be consulted on annually within a very strict timetable. So that is a kind of an annual process that needs to take place, and so it's part of normal governance. This year, however, you'll notice that there are recommendations in there with different options. One is to do nothing, and the do nothing option is the one I can tell you that Cabinet are hoping to be able to implement, and it's the one that officers hope will be possible to maintain. But the reason that we have put 2 options in that reduce the benefits to the user to some extent reflects the severity of Boston's financial position as we look into budget year 26-27. There is the prospect of a significant budget shortfall, and we wanted to make sure that members, and I do mean members, in terms of ownership of the budget, the ability to input to it through budget scrutiny or through Cabinet, depending on where you sit in the governance structures of the council, we wanted to provide the community with some aspects of being able to take cost out of this scheme should the budget shortfall be very severe, and allowing for the prospect that there might be savings that need to be taken that might be even more painful during the cost of this particular scheme. So the reason you have options is not because anybody, least of all Cabinet, is pushing for them, quite the reverse. We're simply putting that in there just in case the council might need to reach for it to balance its budget. And
I think that,
sorry,
the point I'm making though is, surely the role of scrutiny would have been to look at those questions and make suggestions as to those questions or other questions. At the moment, all we can comment on is really note that the consultation's going on. I mean, we can't change the questions. We can't do anything.
So I think it would be perfectly reasonable for you to ask your officers to come back with a brief on the content of the consultation, because there is still time to adjust that, and the proposals that have been adopted actually probably would benefit from some discussion. So I'm very happy to take that away and see if that can be arranged for your next meeting, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah. And so if members are happy for the moment, I think we leave this for now and we bring it back to our next meeting with a more detailed report. So, thank you for your time on that.
Thank you, Chair.
Yep. So, if a member's happy, I mean, obviously, if members got any questions at the moment, please ask them. But I think really, there's not a lot of impact we can make at the moment. If you, well, please go ahead.
I'm sorry, Chair, I've lost sound. I can't hear anything in the room.
Members, can you make sure you speak in your microphones?
We'll leave it. I think we'll leave it like you said. I think we'll leave it.
Well, no, I'm happy if members have questions to ask on the scheme. So I suppose my one would be if we adopt the worst case scenario, how much extra money will we be sending to Lincoln next year?
Sorry, how much extra money?
Yep. Well, at the moment we're using 60 odd grand of our reserves ish to meet 13% of the council-backed support scheme. If we were to go to the worst case scenario, we would be sending more money to Lincoln next year than we are this year. And how much is it?
Okay, I don't know if that's in the report. I don't know if Gemma can.
No, I didn't see it, but I just was wondering.
If it's not, we'll provide a written response, Chair.
Yeah, fine. Thank you. As I say, I think in sense, it would be better for it to come back to us through a report and actually, when we've actually heard the consultation. This is going to be a decision of full council anyway. This isn't actually a decision of Cabinet in the end. So I just think at the moment we move on to our next business. So.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good evening,
thank you.
Members. Thank you.
Cheers. I hope your hotel room's nice.
Sadly not, Chair, but you can't win them all, can you? Thank you.
So that brings us to item 7. We're nearly there. Sorry for making you wait quite so long, but it's been a busy agenda. So our next item is the update on the plan for neighbourhoods, which starts on page 193 of the agenda and presented by Pranelli Prakash, Director of Economic Growth.
Well, I'll sort of mount the opening salvo on this one. At the risk of putting everybody to sleep, I'm very conscious that it's now getting on for 9 o'clock, so it's getting late. I think it's worth starting out the preamble to this report by actually looking at how much money Boston has had over the last 6 or 7 years in terms of grants from the government. And I just did a quick rough calculation, and it comes to about £56 million, which is a significant amount of money. In addition to that £56 million that's historical, and we're still in the process of committing to various projects, or we've committed to various projects, we have what is now described as the Plan for Neighbourhoods funding. The Plan for Neighbourhoods funding can be identified at, I think it's, where is it in the report? And I've lost it. I've made copious notes. Yeah, at 1.4. So we have a pot of £20 million to be spent over a 10-year period at roughly the amount of £2 million per year, which is not an insignificant amount of money. We're doing this in conjunction with the Plan for Neighbourhoods Board. This is a vitally important relationship that we have with the board, and you can find details of our relationship with them on at point 2.2 to 2.4 in the attached report. The original Plan for Neighbourhoods started its generation, if you like, its earlier generation as the long-term plan for towns under the last Conservative government. It was then rebranded as the Plan for Neighbourhoods. We have a wide consultation arising from the necessary spend and collaboration to ensure that we actually use this money wisely, and we use it with full consultation of the community participating. You can find details of that, the wide consultation, at 3.3 in the report. It's always worth starting by looking at what the government's themes are for something like this. The government has 3 themes for our spend: thriving places, stronger communities, and taking back control. As a result of a workshop that was held very recently by the Plan for Neighbourhoods Board, we've also identified safety, town centre improvements, and the 2030 celebrations as 3 other local themes. And you'll see at point 4.1 in the report, the internal workshops and community engagement has given rise to a number of other more locally identified priorities: town centre vitality, community infrastructure, safety and perceptions, and pride in place and culture. There's ongoing consultation. You can see details of that at 3.3E in the report. There's still stakeholder workshops going on, and there are 3 planned for the future: Pride in Place, Brand for Boston, Health and Wellbeing, Employment Skills and Learning. The report that we're preparing has to be completed by the 28th of November to go off to government. So there will be a report presented to Cabinet prior to that. And once we've actually got the report put together, it will be presented to members at sort of consultation events. So members have an opportunity to consider its content. I think I've covered all the various recommendations. I'll just read them off to ensure that you feel satisfied that I have. So I hope the committee can note that the progress being made so far for preparing the submissions to the government for the plans for neighbourhoods, the extent of consultation and engagement with communities and businesses, and the outcome of this work identifying key priorities and the next steps for submission and delivery of the approved plan. So myself and Pranay will be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Are there any Councillor Pierpoint?
Having sat on the town board up to May, when it was called something else at the time, I can't remember what it was called, it was a different title, wasn't it? and then being involved with this business forum, the one that's sort of in the town centre. My concern was, or is, the two organisations weren't really gelling together to find out whether there was any crossover or any areas that they've missed out on, because you've got two organisations doing similar things. All right, one's got plenty of money, one's got no money. So, you know, have you worked with this new group to see whether there's any crossover, duplication, or have we missed anything as part of the town centre? Because I think it's important when you've got two bodies doing similar things, and they are similar in some respects. One's obviously doing lots of investment, and one's trying to get a thriving town centre back on its feet again. Is there anything that we've missed, any opportunities that we've missed with not working with these people, or working with these people, or how is it all gelled together?
Well, I mean, I've sat on two meetings, and I'm reasonably satisfied with the relationship that we've begun to establish with the Plan for Neighbourhood Board. I'm very happy with what I've seen in the two meetings that I've attended. I think there's an awful lot of goodwill, and we're all, well, both Boston Borough Council's Economic Development Team and the Plan for Neighbourhoods Board are focused on the same things, which is to improve Boston economically and socially and culturally, and take advantage of the rich heritage that this town has got. So I think, you know, going forward, you know, it's going to be a very strong union. I don't know whether Pranav's got anything further to add on to that.
No, I agree with Councillor Gilbert completely. Just to provide reassurance, the business forum, the business association that you mentioned, that is supported by the town board. We did a workshop with the businesses to get their views, which has informed the work we are doing with the Plan for Neighbourhoods. So board are very much aware of the work of the business association. The difference between the two is the business association is purely a collection of businesses on an informal basis. The town board is a requirement from the government to have an oversight of the delivery of the plan and preparation and delivery. So that's the difference. And town board has a much wider remit. So the stakeholders sitting around the board, the table there, include community, business representatives, cultural representatives, a much wider remit for the town rather than just business focus. But yes, they are both aligned. Thank you.
Councillor Richard Austin.
Just to say that I'm so pleased that 2030 is included in this report, and there's a potential of money for that. I mean, it's going to be such a big event for Boston and the whole of this South Lincolnshire. Tremendous potential both for the community and for the economy of the area, and so we need to keep focusing on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Izard.
Yeah, just quickly, and maybe I've got the wrong thread here. Maybe it's too late in the evening. But on 197 under next steps, it says internal workshops and community engagement point to several early priorities. Generally, I'm surprised that no one's mentioned the fact that they would like an increase in public toilets or possible free parking to help encourage a stronger and safer nighttime economy and various other aspects under that. Am I missing the point that you're not actually showing what the feedback yet is from the consultation process?
We have consulted quite widely. I mean, I think there's some information in this report to indicate that over 1,000 pieces of feedback have been received, and there's been a very wide group of individuals who've contributed. We've consulted with young people. I think the questionnaire went to the local mosque, and other organisations have all had an opportunity to feed in. But it is early days. I mean, there's still an opportunity to develop the plan. You know, nothing's cast in stone at this point. And indeed, I don't think there's anything cast in stone as we move forward. Obviously, some things, once they're committed to, have to be followed through. But there's quite a lot of flexibility within this. So other things could be suggested at some point, and we could adopt them.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. I'm just obviously aware of what social media and that kind of point to as far as what they would like to see in Boston. So, yeah, that's
Well,
fine. That's good.
those contributors on Facebook have an opportunity to contribute to the consultation.
Thank you. Well, in my view, this has actually been a very good report. Again, it's
Yes.
very open. It's we do seem to be trying to our best to consult people. I mean, in fact, the response you've got is pretty miraculous, in honesty. I mean, it's not normally you would get that level of response. So I think it's really quite good. I've got just a very slight aside, and it's not really something to do with this. My understanding is part of the of this new proposal by government does include changes in law and powers for councils. And I'm just wondering whether we could have a report on that. So this is obviously this is not part of this, it's not the finance side. But I understand the government is looking to empower councils to be able to make change. So if at some stage we could have a report on where that's going, if it is going anywhere, I think that would be useful for us.
If Pranali, you can just indulge me. I mean, I think that's to do with the 1 point that's been announced as part of the 1.5 million pride of place funding that's recently been made available to us. But I suspect it will extend back to any funding that we've previously.
Yeah, but I think it's outside of funding. This is actually
it's outside of funding.
Giving councils powers to actually solve some of the problems that we've found difficult to. We've not had the power in the past. That's my understanding.
It is mentioned in the latest government announcement last week that we have been given, on top of the 20 million that's mentioned in this report, as of last week, we have been given another 1.5 million for Boston to work on the town centre vitality and working with communities to look at what kind of immediate interventions we can do. That comes with some promise of new powers like compulsory purchase orders or high street rental auction kind of initiative.
No, I just thought that they do seem to be floating some sort of new non-money thing.
Correct. There isn't enough details just yet, but as we know and learn more, we will bring back those details to this.
So we've been asked to note this report. I think it's a very good report, and it's very good news for the town of Boston and the borough. So are we happy to note that? Thank you. Which brings us on to item 8, review of policies, pension and pension discretion policy. And we've got Rachel Robinson here. Sorry for keeping you quite so long.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. So this report presents the pension and pensions discretion policy for review. The policy ensures legal compliance, reflects best practice and supports consistent workforce management, both within this council but also across the partnership. So the local government pension scheme requires us to publish a clear statement on how the council applies certain employer discretions. The policy sets out the council's approach, balancing flexibility for employees with financial prudence for the council. The report outlines the need for the policy, the review. It also includes a simple table of the current position and the proposed position for the discretions that are covered. Some key points just to highlight are that a case-by-case approach for areas like flexible retirement and actuarial reductions allows the council to support staff where appropriate, but also whilst managing cost exposure. It does create an alignment across the partnership, which simplifies administration and also ensures consistency. And just for your assurance, the policy has also been reviewed and also endorsed by what we call a readers panel, which includes officers from across the partnership. Also, our recognised trade unions, both at a local and a regional level, and the senior leadership team has also provided feedback and endorsed it, and that's all been incorporated into the iteration that you've got in front of you today. So this panel's feedback will help shape the final version that will go through to council. So I'm pleased to invite feedback and comments. And we also have Aileen with us from HR, so the head of HR and OD at PSPS, who is here to answer any technical questions.
Again, can I just say, and I'm keeping saying this a lot, but again, it's a really readable report. So yeah, and again, if the report's well written, which it is, then people understand it and it's easier to implement and we know where we're going. So again, I do think in recent times some of the reports are really quite impressive. So do members have any questions? Councillor Izard.
Had to be me, didn't it? Yes. So if we look at page 208 and either of the flexible retirement, whether to allow the member to choose to take. It kind of says the council has chosen not to adopt this discretion. And then it says the council will reserve the right to exercise the discretion and will deal with it on a case-by-case basis. And that's kind of, it doesn't mean for all staff, does it, in that sense that when you say discretion, are you talking about discretion of all levels of staff, no matter whether they are Rob Barlow at the very top towards a cleaner at the very bottom? Will it include all staff? And also that is kind of confusing in the way that you put the statement. Sorry.
I can respond. So the table is just summarising. The first column is your current council policy. The second is the proposed aligned policy across the partnership. So currently you've chosen not to adopt that particular discretion, and all employees can choose what they do or don't. We've just indicated a shift to allowing you to choose to, so it'll be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Cost will clearly be a consideration, as will things like with flexible retirement, there's a separate bit in the main policy which defines the consideration. So service, so if it was a unique role and you couldn't allow that person to reduce their hours under the flexible retirement or reduce their grade, that would be a consideration that the partnership would take.
As long as you kind of confirm that it's open to all staff and not just at a senior
Policy
level.
applies to everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's what it is and now what it's going to be. That's why
Yes,
it seems
yeah,
to be contradictory.
yeah,
because we're changing.
absolutely.
Thank you. So are there any other questions? No, well, again, thank for me, it makes a lot of sense. Will we, obviously, with the local government reorganisation happening, is this going to become a major issue for us?
The LGPS specifically? Or?
Well, yes. I mean, obviously, with the changes, it's obviously a lot of people will be tuping all over the place. But will that become an issue that people will be wanting to try and get early retirement and things like that? Do you think that's going to be?
You might have. You're going to have a contingent of workforce that, when more is known, might decide that the next few years is how they see their career ending, and they might want to look at some of these options. Again, the discretion is there, so it doesn't have to be agreed to.
Oh no,
but there will equally be a bunch of people that will want to move.
But you have the resource. I mean, you'll be resourced to deal with this, I assume, as we move towards.
Yeah, no, clearly decisions might not be the council's at that point. That could.
Oh no, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, obviously it's going to become, a resource issue. And I'm just checking that you feel you're going to have that resource.
Yeah, the process and administration of it will be kind of my team support, but it will involve corporate management in terms of decision making. Some of it comes down to strain costs. Some of these discretions are about strain costs. That's the pensions body. So we have to wait for the timetable they work to. So yeah, at the moment, I mean, the fund is Lincolnshire. It's the LGPS, so it will apply to all local government now. I don't expect it will change unless statute puts changes in, but who knows?
No, somebody was lucky enough to retire at 55, made up to a full pension. I suppose that doesn't really happen nowadays, does it?
Not often, no.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for your time with that. I say, and genuinely, it's a good report. It makes life easier for us. Thank you. Which brings us on to the work programme, and I'm proposing, in fact, if members want to add things to the work programme, particularly out of what we heard, the first two things this evening, that you email Dem Services, and we will look to add them to the work programme. I don't think it's particularly a discussion, unless anybody's got any desperate issue they want to raise.
I think we've got quite a heavy work programme, don't you? Looking at the stuff that's going to happen in the future months. So,
Yeah, no, that's why I'm inclined not to add things to it. But obviously, there was a few things, from Hagley Water this morning that we might want to look at, over the next year or so. So I'm not in a hurry. But if you want to email in with any ideas on that, I think it's the best thing. And with that, I close the meeting with 16 minutes left.
Well, there won't be no rainfall until left soon.
Sorry, we've got 3 hours. So at 9:30, we would have had to have moved to the defence standing order. No, it's 9:30.